and welcome to the Guitar and Music Institute podcast, episode number 60. My name is Jed Brocky, and today I'm in conversation with Robbie Melville. Robbie is an award-winning Australian guitarist and composer. In 2023 he released his latest album, Tangled Trails, which was inspired by work that he's done playing for silent movies. Interspersed throughout this interview, I'm going to be playing snippets from Robbie's various albums. Weirdly, we're up to episode number 60 and I've never actually interviewed anyone from Australia before, so we were at opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of time. It was late at night for me, it was early for Robbie, but I think we've put together an interesting podcast which is going to tell you a lot about the Australian music scene, Robbie's approach to music and composition and the people he's worked with and the work he's done, and also his future plans. If you've never heard the GMI podcast, we've got a huge range of people from all walks of life within music, not just guitar. Please do come over to the gmiguitarshop.com and you'll find a whole range of products, many of them free, courses, downloads, PDFs, all sorts of printed materials. Robbie, thanks so much for taking the time out early morning as it is Downunder to be part of the GMI podcast.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Jed. It's a pleasure to be part of it.
It's just so, it looks so warm over there. Is it boiling over there?
No, I mean, that's a bit of it looks good, but it's not. We happen to live in sort of about the coldest part of Victoria, so the sky is blue for once, but I think it's about 13 or something at the moment, so it's not.
That's positively tropical from where I come from.
Yeah.
I don't think summer hits 13, but anyway, that's another thing altogether. Now, as weird as this is, I think you're the first real guitarist I've ever talked to from Australia. I've not come across a lot of Australian musicians, and I want to get into all of that with you.
Yeah.
In another life, I used to part run. Supposedly, I was not very good at a record company, and we would go to things like Medem and Popcom, and we would always meet these Australian guys who would come all the way over the world, and all that travelling. It was nothing to them. So, do you have to do a lot of travelling over there? Yeah,
I think that's the really quite difficult thing about touring in Australia is the distances. We don't really have a very big population on a really massive island, and so for me to play in Melbourne and then play in Sydney the next day is if I'm going to do a tour where I'm driving, that's like a 12-hour drive, so it's not, and that doesn't really work. So a lot of the touring in Australia is really playing in a lot of regional areas, which is fine, but we just don't have a very big population. So
what is the population of Australia, Robbie?
Maybe around 26 million or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So that means it's thinly spread out.
Yeah. I mean, Melbourne and Sydney are really the two big centres, and then there's Canberra, which is just full of politicians, so that doesn't really count. And and Perth and Adelaide are fairly small. Perth is right over the other side.
I was going to say, do you ever get a nice $30 Australian dollar gig in Perth?
Yeah, well, I have been offered. Yeah, so it's just kind of it really doesn't pay very well to get around. You do need sort of financial support from a touring company.
So trying to understand the Australian scene, because I think this is where what this podcast for me is all about, as well as getting to know you a bit better, and for the listeners to the GMI podcast, does that mean that the musical power, in a sense, is really concentrated in Australia because, that the population is so thinly spread with a few centres.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think the Sydney scene is kind of quite different to the Melbourne scene because of the actual layout of the city. There's no kind of real sort of little hubs of activity. So if you go into a gig in Sydney, I mean, this is in my experience, you have to already have made the decision that you're going to the gig. Whereas in Melbourne, we have these little pockets of musical activity. So you might, if you want to go out to see a gig, you might just go, well, I'm just going down to Fitzroy or whatever, and then you can just walk around and pop in wherever and see what you can find.
So do you find that the music community in Australia, everybody knows everybody in a sense? I mean, 28 million is a lot of people, but the sort of level that you're talking about, the sort of work you've done, is it quite in a sort of small elite group?
No, it's actually a lot bigger than I kind of think it is, but certainly within, I guess within like the Melbourne, maybe like for instance the Melbourne jazz scene, pretty much everyone sort of pretty much knows each other, or certainly knows of each other. But the thing that's really healthy about the Australian music scene is there's a lot of kind of cross-pollination, I guess, between genres or styles or what. So there's a lot of jazz musicians and folk musicians who will play with each other all the time, and so it's still a big enough group of people that you can still always meet musicians that you've not even heard of who are really incredible. Yeah.
So I was certainly picking that cross-fertilization up from your music.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite wonderful. I was picking up, notes of ECM at times, but then at other times there's other influences. I'm probably like me. I mean, everybody wants to put everyone in a bag, but we can't help, or in a box. We can't help but do that sort of thing. But yeah, I found your music was quite interesting and diverse. It was sort of classical elements to it and folky as well.
Yeah, I guess it's just a product of whatever I was exposed to growing up. We had this beach house with his family, and one of the guys who just passed recently, Ed Fratz, who was he was a jazz drummer, and he used to play like Louis. He loved Louis Armstrong and Billie Holiday, and so I was listening to that as a kid, and then my parents were listening to the Beatles, and my mum was listening to Tchaikovsky, and I was getting War of the Worlds. I can't remember the guy's name.
Jeff Wayne.
Yeah, Jeff Wayne.
With Richard Burton.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean,
yeah.
I only found out recently that Richard Burton was Welsh and could speak Welsh.
Yeah.
Fluently.
I mean, God, what a voice that guy had.
That makes it, doesn't it? Don't you think that it just makes it?
Yeah.
If anyone's listening to this around the world who hasn't listened to War of the Worlds, then the original one by Jeff Wayne, listen to it. You're in for a treat. So this is the sort of thing you were getting exposed to early on, Robbie?
Yeah, and then also when I was growing up in the late 70s and early 80s, the sort of Australian, pop scene was a lot more diverse than it was now, and was really, I mean, there was some really quality stuff. I don't know how much of it reached the rest of the world, but it was certainly really enjoyable to listen to the radio back then, which I don't find now. Yeah.
Well, I think the Australian thing, I mean, I'm sure you're going to tell me a whole bunch of acts of that, but for us it was like Men at Work.
Well, of course, yeah. You got the connection there.
Yeah. Is that the Finn brothers?
Oh, yeah.
And then
so New Zealand, but we just pretend they're...
Oh, that's a faux pas right there. Boom. And then there was Kylie Minogue, and there was Natalie Imbruglia.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but I can see your eyes starting to. I only just found out as well. This is a revelation. This was of admissions that "Torn" that she sung was actually someone else's song. So I'd like to talk a wee bit about you because it is your podcast after all, and I think folk would love to hear a wee bit about you. And it's very impressive reading. Tell us about just getting into music, taking it seriously, and you headed towards, in 2005, for example, you were the principal guitar chair in the Australian Pops Orchestra. Can you lead us up to all of that? Because I think folks are going to be really interested in all of that.
It's a long story. Look, if I go right back to the start, my sister was having piano lessons just down the road from us when I remember I was about 6, and I went along with my mum to pick her up one day at the end of the lesson, and I was sat there just listening to this piano teacher, demonstrating, and I was like, wow, I want to go. So, I asked my mum if I could have lessons, and I started learning as well. And so that was that, and then when I was about 12, I think, in school they had a really good music program, and I somehow I didn't choose it just kind of happened. I was playing double bass just as a little.
How did that work?
Oh, they gave me a kind of smaller one. It had a cutaway. It was strange. And so I was learning piano and double bass, and probably got a pretty good grounding in reading music.
Was that an in-music joke there? A good grounding with your double bass. Anyway, let's move on.
Not intentionally. And so then when I was about 14, I just gave them both up because I just became a snotty little teenager. And then I think the following year I bought a bass guitar. I was messing around with that, and then I just found a guitar in the cupboard. I didn't even know we had one. And I just started teaching myself guitar.
That's what you didn't even know you had a guitar, and you just picked it up. Yeah,
I don't know. It was in my sister's cupboard. I didn't know. I wonder where it came from.
An ex-boyfriend. You're still looking for it.
Yeah.
I could have been something. I could have been a contender.
He left it there when he was hiding in the cupboard or something.
What do you remember? What it was, Robbie?
It was just a cheap little nylon string.
I was hoping you were going to say it was an Echo, EKO or Eco. Do you remember that?
Actually, I have one. My dad's best friend. He wasn't a musician or anything, but he had an Echo 12 string that he left to me when he passed away, which was really nice.
But they're made in the Czech Republic or Czechoslovakia, I think.
I thought they were Italian.
Are they Italian? It's just that my guitar teacher, who's also my best pal, but way back in the day when I started playing, he was playing an Echo.
Wow.
It's just amazing. They go everywhere.
Yeah. Czech Republic. Far out.
That might be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But, so a 12-string, wow. They were really good guitars.
Yeah, they're great.
You still got it?
I still got it, yeah.
Do you ever use it on recordings and stuff?
Yeah, it's on. I've got an album coming out next year that I've already put some on.
Do you see what I did there? Right.
Yeah, thanks. I'll send you the check later.
So please carry on.
Yeah, I just taught myself for I think the next sort of 4 or 5 years, and then my girlfriend said she, her friend knew this guy who was giving lessons, and he was a jazz guitarist, and so I ended up going and having lessons with this guy. He's a fantastic guitarist called Miles White, who's a bit of a hermit now. So I had lessons with him for a little bit, and then I sort of auditioned for music college, and spent 4 years there.
Which one did you go to?
So I went to a place called Box Hill College of TAFE. Yeah, so that's kind of the two big sort of places to study music, or jazz and improvisation at the time were that and the VCA, and I didn't feel that I was really ready for the VCA.
Is that Victoria Contemporary Arts?
College of the Arts, yeah. Yeah, so I did the 4 years there, and my teacher, Mario Latuada, who I'm still in touch with, as you are with your teacher, he had been playing for, 20 years or something, 25 years in the Australian Pops Orchestra. And so I'd probably been out of college for a year or two, and he rang me up and he said, look, I'm, sort of had my time. Do you want to give it a crack? And I'd never played with an orchestra. I mean, it's terrifying. But I said yes, of course, because you say yes to everything, right? If you wanted.
How did you get on with that first downbeat with the conductor's baton?
Yeah, terribly. You know what I saw? I mean, I understood the conducting thing. I understood where beat one was, but what I was hearing was not relating to what he was doing.
Just to everyone out there, there's this big thing which I teach my own students, and that is that, like, the classical dudes, they just have a different time, and a lot of it's down to the time that the bow takes to scrape across the strings. And guys like Robbie and myself would play on beat one, right on the downbeat, but they don't. It's somewhere up in the air.
Yeah.
The only thing I found, Robbie, to help me with that was to kind of just keep the conductor and peripheral and just keep locked into the music. How did you deal with it?
Well, it was sort of like an orchestra with a rhythm section.
Huh.
And so I remember the first rehearsal just kind of sitting there freaking out and hoping that I didn't sort of screw up too badly. And then I rang my teacher after I got home. I said, I don't understand what's going on with the conductor. And he goes, don't worry about it. The violins were, what did he say? The violins are going to be ahead. The woodwinds will be behind. So just listen to the drummer and you'll be all right. And that's what I did. I just didn't really, I kind of stopped looking after that.
So what sort of stuff were you playing? And is all popular music segues of popular music? Yeah,
like I mean, there was what did we do? It's like some contemporary kind of musical, like French Revolution.
Les Miserables.
Yeah. So some stuff out of that. Some jazz standards. There was like this insane Russian vibes player. That we back. I mean, he was nuts. He was so good. He was phenomenal, but he didn't need an orchestra behind him. I don't know if you know Guy Sebastian over there. He's a big Australian. He was sort of, I think, came second or whatever in one of those early versions of The Voice over here, and sort of made a career
over there with the guys in the chairs.
Yeah.
It's like, I only watched it a couple of times. Tom Jones, to keep the Welsh connection up, was in it over here, and it seemed to me like if you could actually sing, no one ever turned round. Yeah. Are you still there, and you're not still with the Pops, are you?
No, so I was with them for maybe about 5 years, and then I moved to Shanghai after I got married. My wife and I decided we wanted a change of scene, and she's sort of English, ESL, English as a second language teacher. She's kind of qualified to the hilt, and she seems to be able to get jobs anywhere at the drop of a hat.
So we got married. Very exotic. So what did you do over in Shanghai?
No, well, we got there, and my wife Julie was working at the university, and there was, we sort of made the decision to go there together just because it looked like she'd be able to work easily, and it looked like there was a decent music scene over there. And at the time, there really was. I don't know what it's like now. I had nothing when we went over there, but pretty soon I scored a few teaching jobs, and then I was playing. I mean, I had to jump through there was a bit of red tape to actually just being able to perform.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I was working for this place called the Jay-Z School, like this dedicated jazz school, and they kind of helped me out with all of that. And then I was performing. So by the time we left, kind of 2.5 years later, I was teaching 6 days a week and performing 6 nights a week. And if we had have stayed, I probably would have given up the teaching and lived the dream of just living from performing, which you could do there at the time.
And what kind of performing were you doing, Robbie?
Look, there was the main group of musicians there were like American expat jazz musicians, and they were really good. And it was really good for me at the time to experience that kind of, they've got a professional kind of take on things there. So, before a set, like if we were just playing standards or something, they go, okay, first tune, we're going to start with this, and then we're going to end with, this ending. And they go through the whole set list and say how it's going to start and end.
All right.
And I'm, how the hell is everyone supposed to remember this?
I was going to say, I hope you've got a good memory.
No, not at all. So I was kind of I was like, wow, this is good stuff. I need to,
So were they actually just pulling your leg? They always did it that way.
No, they were very serious. And, so that was good. So there was, a bunch of jazz gigs, and then also, like I had this Tuesday night gig just playing sort of pop tunes, and there was a lot of, function, just sort of backgrounds kind of function, really well paid, sort of stay in the back and
lose your soul.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I know those gigs.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then I think most musicians have to do them. I guess if you're John McLaughlin, you perhaps don't have to do them. Pat Metheny.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there's very, very few, isn't there?
Yeah. And I feel like you go through, different phases when you kind of, things line up, you're sort of looking for a certain thing with what you want to be able to do with your music, and and that sort of changes over time. And certainly at that time, it's kind of what I was looking for. I just wanted to play with different people because I'd been playing in Melbourne for years with the same. I sort of felt like I was a bit stuck just playing with the same people all the time. So it was good for me to go over there and sort of get a new look at things and appreciate what it was like back in Melbourne. So it was a good learning experience for me.
I think musicians need that, don't we? We need to go out and get that sort of almost stamp of approval by playing in other places, other countries. It gives us an understanding of where we came from, and that we're not got, because most creative people have got imposter syndrome, don't they?
Yeah. Oh, do you know that story about? Oh well, I can't. I'll blow the ending if I tell you who it's about. I'll tell you a quick.
Right, yeah, tell the story.
Okay, so Neil Gaiman, who's a writer. I don't know if you know this guy. I've never read any of his books, but anyway, he was at some conference years ago, and it was a big, multidisciplinary conference. So there were creative people and economists and scientists and all of this. So anyway, he's standing there watching this lecture, and he's standing next to this fella, and there's the guy's giving a lecture on whatever, and the guy he's standing next to goes, "Oh man, like I just feel so embarrassed to be here." And Neil Gaiman's like, "What are you talking about? Why are you embarrassed?" He's like, "I shouldn't be here. All these people here, they're so intelligent. They're doing all these incredible things. All I ever did was I just did what I was told to do." And the guy he's standing next to is Neil Armstrong.
Wow.
Armstrong can have imposter syndrome. The rest of us are just fine. Yeah.
He's an interesting guy, Neil Armstrong. You may not know that he actually had Scottish roots. And he went back to, there's a small town called Jedburgh, and he gave a big talk to them. I think it might be on YouTube. It's certainly an audio recording of just talking about, how, I don't know, maybe you don't know, like people in Scotland, everything's Scottish, everything in the world that's any good undoubtedly came from this country, small country. But in that regard, Neil Armstrong actually did know about his Scottish heritage in the borders, and actually went back and went to the town. It was quite incredible. Imagine thinking that, you go to the moon. Unless he didn't go to the moon, don't go there.
Oh, is that what this podcast is about?
This musical interlude is Robbie's song 11 Orange Monsters I Have Known. The other aspect of you, which I find quite interesting, because it's something that I'm into as well, so you look for it in others, is your composition. Can you tell me, is it something you've always done in terms of, just as an outlet, and tell me how your composition has developed over the years, and just the mind of a composer for the people out there?
Yeah, well, I've just always done it, really. Just not. I mean, I didn't think about it. I just started doing it when I was about 15. When I got my bass guitar, I just started writing, and then I was just writing. I had a band, and I was just writing songs, just probably not very good ones, and just trying to get close to what I thought was good music, missing the mark by a long shot. But then I guess in college, like the one really big thing that I've always had since I went to college and was learning composition is I had this teacher, Lachlan Wilson, and he said it's all in the first bar. And so I've been trying to live by that with my compositions, ever since then. And I'm getting better at it, but it's very, very difficult. But I guess the point of that is that instead of constantly, like when you're working on a piece, constantly trying to come up with new material to lengthen the piece, it's like you always refer back to the first bar, so that it could be a melodic thing, it could be a rhythmic thing, might even be a textural thing, but whatever you do somehow relates back to the first bar. And whether people can hear that in the music or not, or whether it's sort of, to me it doesn't matter, as long as I know that what I'm doing has a relationship with the initial kind of seed. That just gives everything a really strong sort of cohesive structure.
When he said that, it's in the first bar, did he then go da 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 da?
Well, it would have been a fine example, yeah. I mean, I took my parents to see Mahler's Ninth earlier this year, and that was mind-boggling how much that guy could actually just work with a motif. Like, unbelievable. I didn't really enjoy a lot of it, but I was totally impressed by how much he could manipulate, like, one little motif. Is just astounding.
Interesting use of language there, manipulate. Wasn't Mahler the guy who got off with a woman who was so beautiful, everybody wanted to get off with her, right? He married her, and then he went off into the mountains. Just sitting at home, he's running about thinking about existential crisis. Talk about being manipulative.
Yeah.
You've got this latest release, Tangled Trails, and I've always been interested in film and how the fabric of a story can be affected by the underscore. And it sounds like you're very much on that page maybe as well. You're interested how music and images affect each other.
Yeah, I started a thing called the Easy Street Ensemble 10, 12 years ago or something, where I would just call whoever, just a couple of friends, and they'd come up. I sort of live an hour out of Melbourne, so they'd come up to the country and we'd put on a film in like the town hall, put on like some Chaplin or whatever, and just improvise to it. And I just did it every few months and just called different people, and I was really only just doing it just because it was a lot of fun. And then more recently I've been doing it with a Melbourne drummer called Ronnie Farella, who's just a knockout human and musician. And we were sort of doing it with the two of us, and we'd invite one other musician. And then I think one time somebody cancelled at the last minute, and so just the two of us, just drums and guitar. And we kind of found that it was easier to turn corners really quickly when there was just the two of us. So we started getting a lot more serious about it. So that's kind of a project I have at the moment. But then that of course influenced the album, the solo.
The thing about playing improvising to Chaplin is that you would start to get worried if people were laughing.
At the wrong spots, yeah. That's right. Well, we figured like if people didn't notice that we were there, then we were doing a good job. Yeah, that was kind of the goal.
Yes. I just want to ask you, I mean, do you still teach, Robbie?
I do 3 days teaching, yeah.
Is that in school? Or is it in college or university?
Just in school. So because of where we live, the limited. Yeah.
So how do you find the take up? Is it the general mix of, those that are being pushed by the parents, those that are interested in a tiny percentage who are really into it?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I just find I think just the percentage of the people who are really into it is lower. But the other big gripe I guess I have is also that it's once again it's like a lack of natural curiosity. So there's not so much people just with an instrument going, what happens if I put my finger here? It's like they want to, tell me what to do all the time.
Is there anything that we should be doing or people could be doing to re-energise young people, or is it just out of our hands? Is it impossible to do anything now?
I don't know. I feel like getting people, young people or any people, but young people into music is difficult because the whole like advertising stuff on Facebook and Instagram and all of that. I feel like that just doesn't work anymore because there's so much, and that really the way to get people back into it is more word of mouth. So my friend Ronnie, who I was talking about before, the drummer, he does a lot of that stuff. I mean, he's really sort of active within the community in Melbourne at just organising gigs and opportunities for people, and I think that's probably the best thing you can do.
The whole social media thing is a weird one. I just wonder if it ever really worked. I mean, I was lucky enough to get taken down to see Sting for my birthday in the north of England. It was an open-air thing in a place called Scarborough. It was fantastic. It's about 8,000 people there.
Is that where they have the fair?
Yes, it is. They do.
Far out.
But it was a beautiful night, and well, a couple of things. The one is that people my age were the only people actually around us who were actually listening.
Yeah.
Gig. Everyone, they're not even listening. He's right. Sting is right there. They're not listening. And then when I got home, I looked on social media, and there was only one thing on Twitter about this concert with 8,000 people.
Yeah.
And you've just said it doesn't work anymore because of saturation, and I'm beginning to wonder And I've been coming to my own conclusion about that actually it really doesn't work anymore. But they keep telling people it does, and they think it does because they'll spend money.
Yeah, I'm not even sure why I'm on it. I feel like I have to be on it to advertise gigs, even though I know it doesn't work. But but I do it anyway. I feel like it's part of the thing you have to do now. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what the solution is. I mean, I barely know what the problem is, just that people aren't. Yeah, that's a funny one. You're saying how everybody just talks. Like, that's the other thing is like the listening thing, which is the most important thing. Like, it's sort of like that has gone as well. Like the ability to listen for, a sustained period, let alone, longer than 10 seconds. Like if I'm playing a song for a student now, like, you should hear this song, this is great. And you put on the song and then 5 seconds into it, they're talking. And it's sort of like, why are you, like, how do you enjoy it?
I had that exact thing today with a student. I said, you got to listen to this because he's got a major, very important exam coming up. And I said, you've got to be a little, your phrasing, the notes you play, got to be a little less, more conversational. Let's listen to, and then I put on Pat Metheny, The Moon's a Harsh Mistress by Jimmy Webb. And then I said, oh, actually, you've got to hear Joe Cocker singing this.
Yeah.
And I started playing it for him. And within 10 seconds, he was playing his guitar. The following track you're going to hear is Foster from the Robbie Melville album, Distance. Moving on from that, what does the future hold for Robbie Melville?
Well, we don't know, do we? But I'm launching a new project just in a couple of weeks called the Village Square, and this is sort of my way of trying to fight everything we've just been talking about. So lack of curiosity, lack of imagination, being fed everything. So what happened was on that solo album Tangled Trails, there are 3 pieces with cello, and so at the end of the session, so that was with this cellist called Zoe Knighton, who's just an unbelievable musician. I mean, she's probably the first, apart from the Pops Orchestra. I don't really play with classical musicians, and she's sort of the first one I really have. And she's got this whole, like, this phrasing thing that is just like everything she plays is just like, oh, that's how you're supposed to play music, And so anyway, at the end of the recording session, she said, you should write a whole album for us. And I was like, fantastic, done. So when I got around to thinking about writing, I thought, instead of just writing a bunch of tunes, I'd like them to hang together somehow. And so I thought of this concept of the Village Square, and I'm kind of thinking, Europe,
Is that where the Burn people?
The what?
Is that where the Burn people, the Village Square?
Oh!
No, it's not that one. It's not that Village Square.
They not. So now I've lost my train of thought. So I thought I'd write a few sentences about, some characters in the Village Square, and then I'd have something to write music for. So that's where it all started. But But as I drove to work and back every day, these few sentences expanded into gigantic stories. And 6 months later, I had a whole bunch of stories and no music. And then I thought, well, looks like this might be more than just music now. So I put together this show, and there's a narrator, and so the narrator tells the story, and then we play the sort of accompanying music after it, which hopefully relates to the story somehow.
That's really interesting, because it kind of is arch form here, because we started talking about the War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
Music and a narrator.
Yeah, well, the guy who's narrating it, when he first came over to my house to, have a crack at it, I was like, just think Richard Burton.
You didn't, did you?
I did.
Did you? That is astonishing. That is absolutely astonishing.
Yeah.
Well, when will this see the light of day? And it's called the Village Square.
The Village Square, yeah. So we're doing our first show in a couple of weeks, but we won't be recording till next year.
Did you get funding for this, Robbie, or is it just a?
Well, not yet. Not yet.
What is funding like over there? Is it difficult to get money for artistic projects?
I think the latest statistics are the success rate is about 5%. So I've kind of I've just given up, really.
Is it one of these things like the Scottish Arts Council, where you've got to fill in about 8,000 pages to be rejected? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It's a lot of work. It's like days and days of work to come to nothing. So yeah, I think it's just easier just to not worry about it, because it's once you've been rejected like 15 times, you just start going, I could have spent all that time practicing. Yeah, there's no money for that. That's funny, because I just got rejected yesterday. So
so this is a bit raw.
But so that anyway, we'll find our way through it. So that'll be out next year. I recorded with my quartet back in June, and so hopefully that'll be out next year too.
In terms of an audience, is it difficult to get gigs over there to promote the recordings?
Look, it's not difficult to get the gigs so much. It's just difficult to get large numbers to gigs. I went, to a friend's launch on Sunday, like album launch, and she's one of the best bass players in the country, and has written this this beautiful album, and I was really, I was a bit surprised. I really thought she would have more people, because she's very well respected, and yeah, it's just I don't know. It seems so hit and miss at the moment, because sometimes you play a gig and there'll be loads of people there, and it's totally unexpected.
That's for your gigs, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's either, no, really it is. It's either like loads of people or like two. Or, I did one a few months ago. I put together a new trio with these people that I've never, I didn't know them. And I was like, it's time to step out again and get out of my comfort zone. And so I started playing with these people I didn't know, and we did our first gig, and there was no one there. I was so, I was so
embarrassed. No one there at all?
Well, not when we started, no. We dragged a few people in, but...
That's brilliant.
Sad. It was a good gig too, apart from...
I remember playing with a group up in Inverness.
Yeah.
It's a long way for Scotland, but for Australia, it's next door. It was at this theatre called the Eden Court, and they were trying to experiment and put more jazzy stuff on. The interesting thing I'd done this sort of Frankie Valli tribute band that had been put on by some promoter in England, and picked up some musicians up here. And I'd done that in Eden Court, and it was mobbed. There were 980 people, not a seat to be there. With the jazz thing, we didn't fill the first row. There was 27 people, but we then found out that the previous week there'd been a trio up, and they had got 2 people for a 960-seater auditorium. So the trio outnumbered the audience.
Yeah, I used to have this band, Clever Horse, and we had recorded this album and mastered it, and I can't remember. We needed like $200, to get the thing out. And so we booked a gig. We thought we'll make $200 off a gig, and then we can get it out there. And we did the gig, and there was no one there except like these two guys came in halfway through, and they sat there listening. And they came up to us at the end of the gig, and they said, that was really fantastic. I can't believe there's no one here. We feel really bad for you. We're just in town from New Zealand going to a conference. Here, take this. And they gave us $200.
You're full of these stories of these happenings.
Right.
Hey, that should be your next album, man. Happenings.
Yeah, happenings.
Yeah, you could have a sort of open prairie with a sort of the beginning, the wisp of a tornado.
It'd be like all those, steaming with the Miles Davis and happening with the Robbie Melville. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Robbie, thank you so much for taking the time to have a wee chat with me. Robbie, thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Jed. It's been a pleasure. And, good luck with the Institute. It's fantastic.
Thanks, man. The track you're hearing now is Two Roads from the Robbie Melville album, Distance.